Carlos has spoken around the world. He's a senior vice president of Cisco. He's on the board of the Centers for Disease Control. He's just an incredible technologist and person, collaborator. He's got so many things in his bailiwick. After Carlos, Mario Casabona and Mario and Don. I'm looking for faces in the audience. And Don will come up. They're going to do a little response to Carlos. I'm going to then do maybe 2 or 3 questions with them, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience. So please know that you will have time for your questions, also at the end of the evening. Does that sound like a fair plan? All right. It is my honor to introduce my friend. Somebody asked, how'd you get Carlos here? And Carlos says, because you're my friend. Carlos Dominguez. Carlos, thank you.
Thank you. How are you? How's everyone doing? Great. Doing well? Are you ready to have some fun? Yeah. Okay, well, first of all, this is a beautiful place. I haven't been in Montclair for a long time, and now I have to come back. And this room is spectacular. But thank you also for taking the time out of probably your very busy schedules to be with me and the rest of the organization here this evening. So what I want to do is just, first of all, share some of my information there for those of you. I'm going to talk a lot about technology. Not that I'm trying to get more Twitter followers, but I tweet a lot on technology. And if you're interested in any of the things I talk about, you'll be able to get it a lot in my tweet. 2 things I want to do tonight. The first thing isn't really smart. The first thing I want to do, I'm trying to win you over, right? And the first thing I'm going to tell you is what I want to do is I want to make you uncomfortable. And the reason I want to make you uncomfortable, it's when you learn the most. I tell people, think of that moment when you either started your new semester in new school here, or you got that promotion and you have a new job, or as a teacher you arrive at a new school to teach, right? The butterflies get in there. And then after 6 to 12 months, you're kind of cool, and everything's cool, no more butterflies, it's time to get something challenging again. So that's one thing, is I want to challenge you and make you a little uncomfortable. The second thing is I want to change your perspective on how you see the world. We all are ingrained and we have this vision of where the world is, and I'm not sure everyone fully comprehends what's going on. So I'd really like to kind of make you think about our world in a little bit different kind of realm. So I'm very privileged. I've been at Cisco 21 years, and for those of you that don't know what Cisco does, we provide all of the infrastructure to make the internet work. So from that vantage point, I've had a very unique view of how the world has evolved. And secondly, I represent probably one of the best known business speakers and business people in the world by the name of John Chambers, my boss, and affording me not only the power of the brand of Cisco and what we do, and working for such a great guy that's so well recognized, it's afforded me a lot of opportunities, not only to spend time with you, but I'm in the greatest research labs in the world. I meet with some of the brightest people in the world. And through that, my perception and my lens has changed. And I think it's the most incredible time to be alive, this very moment in time. Not 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years ago. Right now, it's the most amazing time to be alive. And good, I'm glad you feel that way. And what I want to do is I want to make sure you truly understand, for those of you that are younger and don't have that perspective, and for those of you that are my age, I feel sorry for you, really how quickly things are changing, right, and what we do. And what I wanted to start off with is, I don't know how many of you know Hans Rosling? Anybody know Hans Rosling? If you haven't, you should Google him. He's one of the few people on earth that actually makes stats look like fun. Right, and what Hans has done in this particular chart, and I'm going to animate it for you, going up on this axis is life expectancy for mankind, and then going from left to right, it's income per person, right? And I'm going to put it into motion. This is from 1800 all the way up, to the current day, and you'll see as we get to World War I and II, you're going to get some really big dips, like 1918 and late 1930s. But look at, in general, how things are moving around 1800s, 1900s, our life expectancy keeps going up. We seem to be making more money. Whoop, there was one of the dips from one of the wars. Here's the second dip coming up. Boom. Right? And as you can see, overall, mankind is moving, where we're living longer, right? And we're making more money per person. And it's had a pretty severe impact. Beautiful animation you can play with. There's a piece of software called Gapminder. But here's the progress over the last 100 years. Our average human lifespan has increased twofold. That's pretty darn good, right? Secondly is per capita has increased threefold, and our childhood mortality rates have decreased by tenfold. Very, very powerful. And look at the cost for food, for electricity, transportation, communications. Look at the communications one. It's gone down 1,000-fold in the last 100 years. We're living in an incredible moment in time. And at the heart of it all is this notion of connectivity. We are connected in a way that we have never been connected before. Distance is dead. It's not uncommon for me to wake up in the middle of the night. My wife asked me, "Where are you going, Carl?" I said, "I'm going to India." And I'll walk out, go to my office, fire up my video telepresence unit, have a call for an hour with India, and I come right back to Ben. She goes, "How was your trip?" I said, "There was no traffic. It was wonderful." Right? It's a commonplace occurrence to do that. It's not something out of Star Trek anymore. And if you think about it, it's really understanding that we're living in a hyper-connected world and the impact that connectivity has on us today and what impact it's going to have for us moving forward. We're talking about disruption. Well, hold on. And at the heart of it is really this connectivity. So what we're going to talk about is how do we decode the fact that we're so hyper-connected and what does it mean? So there's been 5 very distinct waves, and I'm not going to kind of get through all the detail of it, but in 1990, that was when the first commercial internet message was sent. Many people don't know that. It's only 23 years ago, right? So here it is something, especially for the younger crowd, right? You know nothing but the internet, and you've lived during that period of time of being hyper-connected. Well, it wasn't always that way. In 1997, I remember there was only 76 million users. I remember calling on many of the financial industry heads and trying to convince them that they needed to have an internet presence. And now you can argue whether you need a physical presence. In 2004, all heck broke loose, right? Social media kicked in, Facebook. We had, in 2007, the iPhone kicked in, the smartphones kicked in. It's changed and revolutionized our entire lives. 2010, things started connecting and exchanging information. And now, through the year 2020, we're having this convergence of a digitized society where everything is converging, and we're living in an exponential world. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. And technologies that are blowing up, from wearable computers, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, 3D printing, synthetic biology, all of these things that are just totally wild. And we're going to go through a few of them just to give you the context. So what's happened is this connectivity has really led to living in a world where everything has changed. So how many of you think the world is changing at a comfortable rate? Anybody? We got one? We got one. Let's all boo and hiss. Come on, boo, hiss. We tend to forget how quickly things are moving. And I mean, just a really good example, most of the people I talk to look like this. They're like, "Oh my God, how do I keep up with it?" And it's not only the people my age, but also some very young people. How do you keep up with everything? So I ask you to consider a couple of things. In the last 25 years, we've had the birth of the internet, we've had the birth of social media, and we've had the birth of mobile phones. In the last 25 years. So much so that now, not a day goes by that we have these devices with us on our body all the time. My wife, who is is a real technophobe, she has that phone next to the nightstand all the time. So I know this world is totally different. When she's carrying a mobile phone, she's always like, "Where's my phone?" Right? And if you work in web programming, online marketing, or the mobile phone industry, your jobs didn't exist 25 years ago. These are all new. As a matter of fact, how many of you remember this phone? The big brick. Some of the younger people are going like, "What is that, Carlos?" That's actually a phone. It was horrible. You had about 25 minutes of talk time. It cost you $3 a minute to call somebody, just to kind of put things into context, right? And now Things are so embedded in our society that 53% of you in this room suffer from nomophobia. What do you think that is? What is it? Yeah, the fear, right, of not being out of cell phone range or not having battery power. How many of you suffer from nomophobia? Show of hands. Okay, and if there's not 53% of you, you're lying. Somebody, there's got to be 53%. You know, the second thing that's really important is we move from a world that has been local and linear to a world that's global and exponential. And this is a really important point to understand. So for most of society and most of mankind, we were born, we lived, and we died within 30 miles. And things that happened 1,000 miles didn't affect you. You didn't even know it was going on. Right? That's the world in which we've lived in. And now we're in a world that's very connected. Right? It's hyper-connected, and no longer anything that happens anywhere, boom, we have it on our mobile phones within seconds. It's a radical difference from where we were in the past. Now, this linear to exponential, this is kind of the curve. I didn't want to test you what's the difference between linear and exponential. I'm sorry, but here it is. And we're living in this knee of the curve where everything is moving at this incredible exponential rate. And if you think about what it means, if I took 30 linear steps like that person in the tunnel, I'd be across the room. Right? 30 steps and we count. If I took 30 exponential steps by doubling each one, that would equate to 26 times around the Earth. It's a kind of a simple way to comprehend the delta between linear and exponential. And look at how it's happened in processing power. Let me bring this one to life. For those of you that are my age, in 1969, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. I remember seeing that like it was yesterday. It was one of the most incredible moments. I know, Don, you remember because we were just talking about it. But if you take all the processing power of the lunar module and the commander module, they got the people on the moon, and you take the Kennedy Space Center and you add it all up, it was equivalent to a Game Boy in the year 2000. That's exponential. Right? We laugh. But that's basically it. We were able to get a man on the moon with a toy that kids were carrying around in the year 2000. Now that's increased exponentially also. And it's not only processing power. Moore's law is writing almost every single technology. Maybe a lot of these that you may not be even aware of. Infinite computing, sensor networks, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology. Right? What the heck is that? Right? Digital medicine, nanomaterials, artificial intelligence. All of these are writing Moore's curve, which means something that you may not be aware of today in 12 months could totally turn our world upside down. So as we talk about disruption, it's really important to understand it. Let me show you the cost of a human genome, a full genome. There's Moore's law in the white line. Look at the cost of the human genome. You can now get 23andMe that sequences a portion of your genome that are important, and they give you about 250 characteristics for $100. If you follow that curve, by the way, the first genome, full complete genome, was over $1 billion. Now it's down to 100 in a subsegment. If you follow the curve that we're talking about, within a 5-year period, it'll be pennies to free. What happens when that happens? Well, personalized medicine. You'll be going to the doctor or maybe a tricorder that's going to determine what you have. It'll give you a prescription. You'll show up to the CVS pharmacy. Pharmacists will look at that, run your genomics on the spot, and 3D print you your medicine that's printed for you. Right? It seems absurd and crazy. No, it's not. Right? That's what this exponential curve means. And I love Al Bartlett, professor at University of Colorado. The greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. So if there's one thing you take out of this tonight is really trying to understand that we're living in a moment in time that's radically different than anything else we've seen in the past. And understanding that is important. The third point is that people have power, unlike ever before. And the people have power because distance is dead. We no longer have the barrier of distance. And knowledge is fully democratized. There's not an argument that goes by in my home during dinner that one of my 3 daughters pulls out the smartphone, they Wikipedia, Google, whatever, and they say, "Dad, you're wrong here." So now I can't BS them anymore. Now I got to be factual and I can't make up stuff anymore, right? They're busting me, right? But knowledge is democratized and it's in the palm of our hands. On top of that, we used to be passive consumers, right? We just buy whatever they made. Now we're contributors. We're contributing continuously, right? We collectively in the United States contribute 70 times the Library of Congress every single 24 hours. It's a lot of contribution. I'm not saying the quality is good of all that content, but we contribute a lot. And here's another interesting fact, 2 facts here. Within the first 24 hours of a newborn's birth, there's over 40 gigabytes that are uploaded into the net in the form of pictures and videos. And 28% of unborn children have a digital presence in the form of a sonogram before they're born. And that number jumps up to 92% by the age of 2. So I have a suggestion. Everyone familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Raise your hand. You do? I submit a change to it. I submit because we're so connected that it should look something like that. Add Wi-Fi to the base of it, right? You know, that's how important it is. All of this is leading to this notion of disruption where we're living in a rebooted world. And I don't care what industry you're in, your business is being turned upside down, right? It doesn't matter. And as a matter of fact, which was one of the first industries about 12 years ago that got disrupted? Anybody remember? Let me give you a hint. You want to sing a song? Which one? Music! Right? The music industry got disrupted. Now, did the music people, executives, go, Sean Fanning from Napster, thank you so much for allowing one person to buy a song and you're sharing it with everyone? Did they thank Sean Fanning for that? Did they go to Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs, thank you for creating iTunes and a software application, and now I have an ecosystem that I can sell them just one song instead of selling them one song and 11 crappy on an album. Right now I can only buy the one I want. Did they thank him for that? No, right? What did they do? They started suing. So I have a suggestion. If someday we all go to prison for downloading music, I just hope they split us up by music genre. What do you think? You're with me? Okay, so I have to do this. This is a disclaimer. This is only a joke. I am not recommending anybody download illegal music. But, you know, the rest is history. You know, digital is there, the whole ecosystem changed, how things are being done. If you look at how people are making money, it's no longer in the same way. Still a lot of money being made, but it's totally, the economics have totally changed. It's happening in retail. Recently in Japan, I saw this. This is outside a train station while people are waiting. There are digital displays. People have QR codes on their phone. They're actually stepping up to, like if it was a supermarket, saying, I want juice, milk, hit send. It's delivered to your home before you get there. Right? You're no longer at a store. The store is coming to you. And there's all these pop-up things that are coming at pop-up malls, pop-up everything. Really cool. But it's changing retail. If you're a retail store, right, and you're putting all of this retail space and now these pop-ups come up, you know, it changes everything. What do you think Amazon is doing by building this gigantic facility for groceries? They're just fulfilling, right? They're being disrupted. Right? It's happening in education, right, in the school. If you start thinking about, we lived in a world that this was the case and now our children are like this, right? They're on and they're hyper-connected. We have courses like Coursera and all these other things that are coming out. And it was quite interesting spending time with some of the presidents of some of the more premier schools in the world, how they're saying, oh, this online MOOC thing ain't going to happen. I'm looking at it, I'm going, are you kidding me? You know, you're looking at it through the lens of what you think. You start getting augmented reality, Oculus Rift, and all these other things where they master this stuff. You create virtual environments. You can do all sorts of really funky things. In Oculus Rift, you can take a tour of a Tuscany home, you know, and once you do that, it's kind of crazy. You go, by God, I'm there, right? And you put some haptic interfaces in a glove that you can actually walk around, feel a vase, and touch it, right? We can't think of the context of what we know today. You got to kind of think of where it's going, right? And what's happening by default is a lot of companies are dying. The average lifespan of companies listed in the S&P 500 has decreased from 67 years in the 1920s to 15 years today, according to Richard Foster from Yale. And here's the punchline. For the entrepreneurs that are out there, by 2020, more than 3/4 of the S&P 500 are going to be companies we haven't even heard of yet. So if you're an entrepreneur, that's a good news story for you, right? And as a matter of fact, if you just expand it a little bit more, incumbents, the big companies, lose out to the upstarts who are unencumbered by the past. They become laggards overnight. Big companies can't change as fast as some of the younger ones. So as you think about it, here's a really good sign of the times. I'm a big photographer. I cried when Kodak filed for bankruptcy. Right? In the same month that Kodak filed for bankruptcy, Instagram got bought by Facebook for $1 billion. By the way, 18-month-old company, 15 employees. Old and new on one page. And that slide is very indicative of the world in which we're living in today. So what does the future hold? Spend a little bit of time thinking about what's coming. There's a freight train coming. If you think things were disruptive and hard before, hold on. Right? So to begin with, there's all of these technologies that are coming at us. And we'll cover a few of them just to kind of give you the context. Each one of these by themselves will totally disrupt us and mankind. And when you put them all together, oh my gosh, hold on. Right? So the Internet of Everything. What's going to happen when we have sensors everywhere? We have sensors on the lights. We have sensors on cameras. We have sensors on our shoes. We have sensors that I'm wearing today, whether it's through my Pebble watch that talks to my iPhone or my Nike that tells me how much exercise. This is changing my behavior. Everyone know what the Nike Fuel Band does? Right? This monitors and tracks my activity. Right? They call it fuel. But I had a contest going on with some of my brothers, right? And it's not unlike, 12:30, 11:30 at night before midnight. I look at it, I haven't hit my goal, I'll get out of bed and run. Right? My wife Tina looks at me and goes, "What are you, crazy?" I'm like, "No, I got to win," right? You don't want to lose. It changes your behavior. So when everything connects, it's going to be really quite interesting. So as we think about it, think about all of these sensors that are detecting and monitoring everywhere around the world, start to transmit and they aggregate information through analysis and they provide visualization. This visualization will be interpreted to give you some insight, and it's going to either save you money through optimization or it's going to make you money through knowledge and information analytics. And all of those things will be processed in a way that's going to improve an outcome. Things will be more efficient, you'll have better customer service, you'll have new products or services. All of these things happen. So let's explore a couple of them. Proteus is a company that gives you internet-enabled chips and drugs. So there's a new drug that you're on, the first batch, which you could have adverse reaction. They give you a Proteus dosage. So the pill is in here, you swallow it, the acids in your stomach activate it, and what ends up happening through the activation, you're wearing a patch that talks to the pill in your stomach with all your vitals, and that patch now talks to the phone talks to your doctor. Right? So internet-enabled pills. Right, for monitoring. Another one that's pretty cool is the elderly. They fall a lot. I can actually give you internet-enabled slippers that monitor your gait, stride, and pace. And through analytics, I can predict 48 hours before you're going to have a fall because your stride and your gait changes. Right, so here's a very simple process. If you don't touch your slippers, if I get up every day and I hit those slippers at 9 and it's 10:30, 11, and those slippers haven't been touched, there's a problem. So you can start adding these sensor technologies to everything and change the world. Parking, we were laughing. Some people were late here because you couldn't find parking. Parking is a problem. I was telling the group that in Paris, the average Parisian spends 4 years of their life looking for parking. So this is a real important need. So there's these applications now where you have sensors on the ground that talk to the car, right, tells you exactly what's going on, and then automatically you can reserve a spot. It tells you exactly where it is, and it'll guide you to the spot. This is being deployed now in smart cities in Barcelona, in Korea, and a bunch of other places, right? And we have it now being deployed in New York City, too. And again, I gave you that fact already. And a couple of things to consider, too, on how you can change it. So if you wanted to buy one of the new Fitbits, and you go online, typically if you wanted to get it right away, there's two criteria that you do. Number one is what's the price? And the second thing, if you're going to go pick it up at a store, is it available? Is it in stock? But if you have all these sensors everywhere, you can provide the consumer a whole suite of new services. So one of the things you can start doing for a differentiated experience is you can say, hey, by the way, there's parking available, and we'll hold a spot for you. Secondly is you can turn on the analytics and do the checkout time and say, there's no wait. So come to the store. You got the right price, we have the product in stock, you have parking, and no checkout time. Right? It starts changing the differentiated experience. Who knows what that is? See what the science fiction, what is it? Tricorder. What did the tricorder do? Diagnosed any health issue. I don't know how many of you remember, right? But in Star Trek, they used to come in and go, and they know exactly what was wrong. Science fiction, right? No. right? They're actually working on a tricorder. And one of the things that's very interesting is this is what they call color amplification. And what they're doing is they're just amplifying the color of the baby, and you're able to see the pulse. So just off of it, think about it. An iPhone camera, you put it on somebody, you can start detecting pulse and all sorts of blood pressure and a variety of other things. Just leveraging the existing platform. You can also do it with motion amplification. So motion amplification, on the left is a video, non-amplified, and on the right is an amplified, and you can see the pulse going on. So very simple technology that just by amplifying color or motion, you're able to detect even a breathing baby. Look at the breathing baby there. You can put a camera on the baby for, sudden infant death syndrome, be able to monitor whether the baby's doing fine or not. I mean, very, very good application. You put analytics on it with a whole bunch of notification. Boy, you can really change everything. So XPRIZE, Peter Diamandis, who does the XPRIZE, actually has a $10 million prize for anybody that can come up with a tricorder. Right? So it's going to come. As a matter of fact, Scanadu is coming out, and well, there it is. Scanadu is coming out, and this particular device out in January, you put it on your forehead, and the sensors will read temperature, blood pressure, oxygen level, and about 5 other things, just by holding it to your forehead. Right? And that's a separate device. Where it gets really cool is when it's all embedded. Think about the future of wearable computers. Over the next, if I were back 2.5 years from now or 3 years from now, 50% of you would have some sort of wearable device. It might be embedded in your clothing. It might be in the form of a Google Glass. It might be a watch that you're wearing. But we're all going to be wearing computers, and that really changes everything. There's skin sensors. Everything's going to be augmented, and these things are pretty powerful. Artificial intelligence, right? They're predicting that by 2040, 2020, that there's going to be one chip that's going to have the power of a human brain. By 2050, one chip, processing power, will have more power than the entire human race. It's exponential, right? And again, and we're starting to see it. How many of you remember Watson playing the chess game? And they beat Kasparov, right? He was kind of angry, but that wasn't that difficult. How many remember Jeopardy, when Watson basically played Jeopardy, right?
You are about to witness what may prove to be an historic competition, an exhibition match pitting an IBM computer system against the 2 most celebrated and successful players in Jeopardy history. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Watson.
After 2 days of competition, the computer is well ahead, proving smarter than man.
35,734.
Welcome to the deciding game. And a 2-day total of 77,147.
And Jeopardy is not an easy. It's snarky. You got to really understand context, right? And they were able to figure that out. And as a matter of fact, it's coming now.
Dr. Mark Norton,
it's being used for diagnosis. This is used now for cancer.
Patient. He logs into the electronic medical record, and instead of spending time trying to find relevant information, he uses the IBM Watson Oncology Diagnosis and Treatment Advisor. He pushes the Ask Watson button, and Watson analyzes the patient data against tens of thousands of documents from its vast body of medical literature. Dr. Norton starts with the Case Information tab, where Watson has pulled out the relevant information, as well as suggestions for additional information to gather. Moving to the Test Options tab, he sees tests that Watson suggests that he consider ordering. He presses the Evidence button to see the reasons why Watson suggested the first test. Then he drills down further into a specific reference that supports the suggestion.
Artificial intelligence at this level on the cloud off of your Google Glass or any other device is coming. It's going to make us experts in anything and everything, right? We're going to take an average doctor and make them Superman, which is good for all of us, right? You know, we may take our handheld device and put artificial intelligence on it and make that handheld device Superman. Hold on, it's coming. Artificial intelligence. Robotics. We've seen them in manufacturing already. It's everywhere. We're starting to see them now in military applications, as you'll see here. This thing is carrying 1,000 pounds. It's called Big Dog. Can climb up, can do all sorts of things. Right? It follows you around. It's pretty noisy right now, but this is just phase one. Right? And there's an example where you kick it and it recovers, right? You know? Kind of here. I like this one particularly. This is one that, This is one that actually a robot that folds clothes. I can't wait for that, right? You'll do your laundry, but you'll see it thinking, and it does perfect kind of manipulation, and you know, you leave and it'll do your laundry, you know, and fold everything for you. They're coming. They're coming in health applications, especially for the elderly, right? Especially carrying them up. They're robotic arms now that can lift 200 or 300 pounds for people that need the help, right? You'll see it there, and it just go on and on and on. But it's coming. Robots are coming, right? And just something to have. In telepresence, this whole notion of having a robot with a camera and a display on it, look at all the different models that are out there. I was the hit of a party. I went to a cocktail party that I couldn't attend, one of the big conferences, and I showed up in one of these robots. So it was my face. I got photographed with all the stars, right? Because I was popular. I mean, the robot, everybody wanted to meet the robot, right? These things are coming. It's not unlike in education that you might have a child that can't come in for a particular reason, and the robot will be there for them, right? And there's a presence. There's something really different about having presence. 3D printing. How many of you are familiar with 3D printing? Everybody, right? You know, this is really quite interesting. Here's a GE aircraft engine that we printed for one of the presentations I was doing. So an aircraft engine, but really the healthcare business is really changing. Here's an ear that this is real. This is now. That could be 3D printed and implanted to someone. A kidney, it's being worked on. I wouldn't want one of these yet. It doesn't work. But they're experimenting with it. These are blood vessels, right? They're 3D printing, so in case of a heart attack, they don't have to remove the veins from your legs. They can actually 3D print them. Bones, this is being done now for hip replacements and right. It's wonderful. They scan your bones and actually create a brand new application. There's a application called 123D that is by Autodesk. It's an AutoCAD. It goes on your iPhone. You can take pictures of anything or anyone. It crunches it all up, and then you can print the 3D model of whatever you just photographed. So you don't even need to understand CAD anymore, right? The barriers are gone. Hearts are being printed. Again, I wouldn't want one of these yet, but it'll show you all these things that are happening. Neural interfaces, right? This is,
so the idea here is
I'm in the Georgia Tech Brain Lab controlling a dolphin swimming on the screen with my brain, with thought.
You've never done this before.
Right, you'll start seeing it.
Imagery and actually me talking to
There's
you
a dolphin.
So vocal counting, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes, very good. 1, 2, 3,
I'm
4, 5, 6,
moving the
like that
dolphin
to
through
yourself.
thought.
And you can raise it. To lower it, you do something like la, 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 you know, taking away the language imagery. So this allows you, and there is a 4-second latency. Good, you ate a fish. Good job. So the idea is you're supposed to intercept the fish before they get to, there you go. Wow, look at that. Hey, Carlos, you really got this.
Right? It's crazy. You know, they're controlling wheelchairs and stuff if you don't have control right through thought. But there'll be a moment in time where a baseball cap with give you access to almost any connection within your home or anywhere else. Autonomous vehicles. How many of you know about Google? Right? I got the privilege of getting in one of them. This is the moment where he released his hands, and I almost died. Because you start looking at him going like, come on, put your hands back on the thing. And then within 30, 60 seconds of this happening, the car swerved to the left, and I thought we were going to die. And all of a sudden, a motorcycle came from the right and went shh. The sensor picked it up, which we couldn't see, right? But it's coming. As a matter of fact, the new S-Class, the new S550 that's just released from Mercedes basically drives itself. You still have to have your hands on it, but it's a full autonomous vehicle. By 2018, primarily, they will all be autonomous vehicles on the road. What does that do to design? If I'm going to the office and I'm no longer driving, I want my vehicle to maybe look like an office. If I'm going out partying with Dennis, maybe I want my bus to be a bar. Right? I'm not driving anymore. I can drink. It's no longer drinking and driving. We may not own vehicles anymore. Why own a vehicle when you can call it upon anytime. So all of these things have very big implications. And then on the law side is we got to think of lawsuits. What happens when an autonomous vehicle gets into an accident? Who's responsible? Right? We got to think about it. And these are the things we got to cover. And then just a couple of final thoughts and just concluding here. You know, there's a lot of key questions that I would ask you to consider. And these are ones that if you own a company, how do companies remain relevant? You know, in this hyper-changing world. And for everyone here in this room is how do you not become obsolete? Right? We're dealing with the speed of anything we've not seen. So what I actually did is I just in process of finishing a book called The Technowist Manifesto, and really it's two very key concepts. How do you leverage the present? And secondly, how do you prepare for the future? That's really what I'm trying to explain, and there's a whole process which I won't bore you, but it really takes this notion of working at remaining relevant. And those that do it will, I think, garner incredible gifts, and those that don't, I think, will be challenged. So, you know, again, it's something you got to work on. And then just some parting advice for students that are here. If there's a skill I'd ask you to think about is becoming adaptable. You know, not feeling uncomfortable with having to change and reinvent yourself all the time. Being open to a lot of new opportunities that exist out there. It's not only the traditional ones, there's a lot of new things. Prepare for lifelong learning. I guarantee you as soon as you graduate, you're going to continue to learn. That's my alarm telling me I'm done. Work at understanding technology. Every single person in this room has to understand technology or you'll be left behind. For the entrepreneurs, who's the entrepreneurs in this room? A few of you. Well, thank you for being here. So it couldn't be a better time for you, right? It's a world now with platforms that allows you to compete like everyone else. Crowdfunding with Kickstarter and everything else kind of eliminates a lot of the funding barriers. It's all about ideas, but you also have to execute. But it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. Teachers, where are you? Where are the teachers? All the teachers. Oh, you're both, a teacher and entrepreneur. If there's one advice I give you, embrace change, right? Which is really hard to do, right? But embrace change. Learning is being disrupted, so don't fight it. Kind of figure out how you experiment and how you try new things. And ultimately, technology is really at the core of everything, right? So all of these things. So I'll conclude with, I think it's an incredible time to be alive. And I'll finish with one story of Jack and Draka. Jack is a 15-year-old that I met at the Clinton Global Initiative. The most incredible young man. He lost a loved one to pancreatic cancer and decided to do something about it. And when he did some research, he found out two things about testing pancreatic cancer. One, the tests were very inefficient, and B, they were very expensive. So he did a lot of research online, leveraging the tools and the knowledge that is available to us all. And he came up with a plan, submitted it to 22 research institutes. Carnegie Mellon picked them up. And in a very short period of time, he discovers a cancer test 100 times more sensitive and 28 times cheaper than the current test. I'm optimistic about our world. I'm optimistic about what's ahead when people like young men like Jack and Drac are giving the tools. And that's the world in which we're living, which is exponential. And when you add all this up, I truly believe that the best is yet to come. So thank you.